Have you ever walked into a room and before your body could even settle, everything felt like it shifted? No one looked directly at you, no one spoke your name, and yet something unmistakable happened. The air grew thicker. The tone of the space subtly changed. People shifted in their seats, some straightened up without knowing why, others grew restless, or avoided your gaze entirely. It wasn't their imagination. It wasn't yours. That was your aura. It preceded you like a silent echo of something they couldn't quite understand. Something ancient, raw, unfiltered. Carl Jung once said, "The psyche transcends the body." And in that statement lies the blueprint of this mystery. You're not just flesh, not merely a body, your presence. You're an energy field of unconscious truths and emotional resonance that others can feel, even if they don't know why. Your presence unsettles because it doesn't seek validation. It exists in truth. It exposes what is false. And the world, so carefully wrapped in roles and personas, doesn't always welcome what is real. When you walk into a space, you're not entering as a personality to be liked. You're arriving as a vibration that demands honesty without saying a word. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. You disrupt not with volume, but with essence. Because while others try to be seen, your very being cannot be ignored. You reflect what others repress, and your silence alone has the power to make a room question itself. That is not something to be feared, that is something to be understood. You are not here to be palatable. You are here to wake the sleeping parts of the human soul, and you don't need permission to do so. You never did. There are people who will be drawn to you without knowing why, and others who will be repelled even without a word exchanged. You carry a mirror in your energy, and not everyone is ready to see what it reflects. Some will call you intimidating, not because you seek to dominate, but because you refuse to dilute yourself to fit into their expectations. You are not noise, you are signal. You are not surface, you are depth. And in a world addicted to distraction, to illusion, to applause, your presence is a disruption. But not all disruptions are destructive. Some are catalytic. Some are sacred. You don't merely enter a space, you awaken it. You stir the unseen. You whisper to the unconscious. And that's what people feel when they feel you. Your energy isn't loud, but it echoes. It's the resonance of someone who has faced themselves, embraced their shadow, and come back whole. That's what Carl Jung meant when he spoke of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, not who the world has told you to be. And once you've stepped into that authenticity, you become magnetic to the real and unbearable to the fake. People may blame you for the way they feel around you. They may call you too intense, too sensitive, too much. But in truth, you're just too real for the games they still play. You're too conscious for the roles they're still rehearsing. Your frequency simply reveals what they're not ready to admit. So let them pull away. Let them misunderstand. That's not your burden. Your task is not to shrink for others. Your task is to remain whole. You don't need to speak to be heard. You don't need to explain yourself to be understood by the ones who are truly listening. Your stillness speaks louder than most people's noise. Your gaze penetrates masks without asking for permission. And your silence, your silence is not empty. It's sacred. It contains the weight of all the wars you've survived, all the truths you've swallowed, all the nights you've spent in communion with your own soul. People don't feel your energy because you are performing. They feel it because you are no longer pretending. You've stopped playing small to make others comfortable, and now your presence itself has become a catalyst for awakening. Children notice it. They look at you longer, smile without fear. Animals approach you, sensing safety. Nature feels different around you, more vivid, more aligned. And you wonder why. It's because you're living in congruence with something deeper, something timeless. You're no longer running from yourself. And that kind of alignment isn't quiet. It vibrates, it hums in your energy field, it shifts reality for those who come near. You don't have to try to heal people. Your energy does it without effort. You don't have to lecture. Your example speaks louder. But with that light comes the contrast. With that peace comes discomfort for those who have yet to find their own. They'll project, they'll retreat, they'll misunderstand, but again, that's not yours to fix. Your responsibility is to be real, to be rooted, to remain awake. This is the paradox of your presence. It heals and it haunts, it comforts and it confronts. Because while your energy creates safety for the authentic, it creates chaos for the artificial. Some will see your calm and feel at home. Others will see your calm and feel judged not by you, but by the silence they haven't learned to sit with. You force nothing, but your being forces a choice in others. Stay asleep or awaken. Stay shallow or go deep. Stay hidden or be seen. Jung taught us that the unconscious drives more of our lives than we admit, and you are someone who lives consciously. That alone creates friction. Because when someone rooted in illusion meets someone rooted in truth, only one reality can remain. And often it's not the one they're used to, so they reject you. Or worse, they admire you but secretly envy what they haven't yet found in themselves. They love you but can't stay near you. They need you but aren't ready for you. And it has nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with their readiness. So don't internalize their reactions. Don't fold your wings to fit inside smaller cages. Don't apologize for being the storm that breaks the spell. Your existence alone is a form of revolution, a spiritual rebellion. You are not born to tiptoe around comfort zones. You are born to expand them, and that expansion isn't always gentle. Sometimes it comes in the form of tension, of disruption, of unexplainable feelings that ripple through a room when you enter it. But don't ever forget, even the earthquake is a form of realignment. They may not thank you. They may not even understand you. But your job isn't to be understood. Your job is to be undeniable. To walk with the kind of clarity that makes the unconscious tremble. To stand with the kind of integrity that calls out every performance, every lie, every small act of self-betrayal, not with words, but with energy. Jung called it the self, the totality of the psyche, conscious and unconscious integrated. And when you live from that self, you no longer play by the rules of the persona. You no longer wear masks just to keep peace. You embody a deeper truth. And that embodiment is rare, it's sacred, it's needed. Yes, it may disturb others, but it will also awaken them. Not everyone will rise to meet you. Not everyone will walk beside you. But those who are meant for your energy will find you. And when they do, there will be no confusion. There will be resonance. There will be recognition. A knowing that surpasses words. So walk boldly. Breathe deeply. Let your silence roar. Let your aura speak the language only the awake can hear. You're not here to decorate the illusion. You are here to break it. And in doing so, you're not alone. You are part of something ancient, something luminous, something eternal. You are a signal in the noise, a soul on fire, a force disguised as a person. Remember that. Embody that. Let everything false fall away, because your energy, raw, real, and radiant, was never meant to be hidden. It was meant to be felt. And it will be. When you begin to understand the truth of your own energy, you stop chasing validation and start commanding respect without demanding it. You start to see that the reactions people have to your presence often have nothing to do with who you are and everything to do with what you represent. You represent freedom to the imprisoned. You represent truth to the deceived. You represent depth to the shallow. And for some, that is unbearable. It reminds them of what they've ignored, what they've abandoned within themselves. Your presence stirs their dormant pain, their buried dreams, their forgotten wounds. And this is why people may avoid you, without explanation, criticize you, without cause, or attempt to belittle you in ways that feel personal, but are rooted in their own limitations. Do not shrink in response. Do not dim your light to comfort their darkness. because the very thing they're rejecting is what their soul secretly longs for: truth, wholeness, depth. And while they may not be ready to embrace it, your consistency, your clarity, your quiet power becomes the invitation they didn't know they needed. You are a living threshold, standing between the known and the unknown, between illusion and awakening. You are the crack in their concrete, the soft disruption in their controlled narrative. And though they may resist it, they will never forget it. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You are the one who brings consciousness. You are the one who interrupts fate. That is not a burden. That is a calling. You do not need to seek revenge for being misunderstood. Your very existence is the answer. The calm in your eyes, the certainty in your step, the stillness in your energy, all of it speaks louder than any defense ever could. The truth does not need to scream. It only needs to stand. And you, standing in the fullness of who you are, become a lighthouse for the lost, even when they curse the light. Your job is not to be agreeable. Your role is not to maintain superficial harmony. You were born to disturb the unreal. You were born to challenge the lie. You were born to burn away everything false first within yourself, and then in every space you occupy. There is a holy violence in your truth, not the kind that wounds, but the kind that purifies. Your energy is not passive. It is alchemical. It transforms, and transformation is always messy. It is always uncomfortable, but it is always necessary. Don't be surprised when those who have built their lives on pretense tremble in your presence. Don't be shocked when the ones who wear masks feel seen and exposed by your gaze. That is not your fault. That is your gift. You are an awakener. You are a reminder. And even when they turn away, something within them has shifted. A seed has been planted. A crack has appeared in the armor. And through that crack, the light, your light, has entered. Let them say, "You're too much." Let them say, "You feel like fire." Because fire is what's needed to melt the ice of illusion. Fire is what's needed to awaken a frozen heart. You don't need to water yourself down to be digestible. You don't need to erase your soul to make others comfortable. The truth is not supposed to be soft at first. It's supposed to be honest, and honesty often stings before it sets free. The ones who are meant for you will not flinch in your fire. They will not hide from your storm. They will recognize your depth not as danger, but as home. They will feel your intensity not as threat, but as truth. And they will meet you there in the sacred space beyond the surface, where real connection begins. This is the destiny of those who carry potent auras, whose presence alone shifts timelines, whose silence alone speaks volumes. It is a lonely road at times, but it is a necessary one. Because every generation needs those who refuse to sleepwalk through life. Every culture needs those who dare to feel, to face, to awaken. You are not alone in this. You are not the only one. You are part of a quiet revolution, the rise of the real in a world addicted to the fake. You are the return of soul in a society obsessed with surfaces. And you are needed more than you know. So remember this: when your aura disturbs others, it is not because you are broken. It is because you are whole. When your silence unsettles, it is not because you lack value. It is because you carry meaning. When your presence intimidates, it is not because you are cruel. It is because you are clear. You are not noise. You are resonance. You are not decoration. You are disruption. And every time you enter a space, the space remembers something ancient, something sacred, something forgotten. It remembers truth. And that remembrance can feel like pain before it feels like freedom. So let them look away. Let them gossip. Let them walk out. Your soul did not come here to be validated by unawakened minds. Your soul came to remind them of who they could be if they dared. And sometimes that reminder will be welcomed. Other times it will be rejected. But it must always be offered. So offer it. With your eyes, with your presence, with your silence, with your unwavering, unapologetic, untamed truth. You are not ordinary. You are not random. You are not accidental. You are a frequency, one that interrupts, one that reorders, one that heals, and one that awakens. Walk with that knowing. Speak with that fire. Stand with that soul. Because the world, despite all its masks, all its defenses, all its fear, is quietly begging for someone like you to disturb it back to life. And now, it's your time. Let your aura rise. Let your energy speak. Let the truth in you become the light that no shadow can deny. You are not here to be tolerated. You are here to be felt, to be known, to be remembered in the deepest sense of the word. Not by what you say, but by what your presence awakens. The weight of your silence, the calm of your gaze, the steadiness of your being. These are not mere personality traits. They are signals. Signals that speak to a part of others they've long forgotten. The part that wants to be real. The part that longs to break through the mask. The part that is sick of pretending. And when you walk into a room, you don't just bring yourself, you bring that remembrance. Some will receive it as a homecoming. Others will feel it like a threat. But either way, it moves them. Your aura does not ask to be welcomed. It arrives. It rearranges. It stirs. And not because it's trying to, because it can't help it. That's what happens when someone integrates their shadow, owns their truth, and stops seeking permission to exist. Carl Jung taught us that the shadow is everything we reject, suppress, and disown within ourselves. But you have made peace with your darkness. You have walked through the inner fires. You have looked at the monster under your bed and realized it was a part of you crying to be healed. And now you carry both light and shadow, truth and mystery, fire and stillness. And people don't know how to categorize that, because you are not just a person, you are a presence, an archetype in motion, the warrior, the healer, the mirror, the storm. You've become a force, and people feel it. Even if they don't know what to call it, they feel it. You are not intense. You are awake. You are not intimidating. You are clear. You are not cold. You are sovereign. And the world doesn't know what to do with someone who no longer plays by its rules. You don't seek to dominate, but your energy commands respect. You don't beg to be heard, but your silence demands attention. You don't chase connection because you have become connection. You no longer depend on external noise to validate your internal knowing. And that more than anything disturbs those who are still trapped in performance. You make it impossible to pretend. Because when you show up, whole-grounded, unapologetic, everything false becomes unbearable. You expose the gap between who people are and who they're pretending to be. Not with judgment, not with criticism, simply by existing in your truth. And that truth, it reverberates, it echoes in their bones. It follows them after you leave. They may not be able to name it. They may not know why they can't stop thinking about you. But something in them has been stirred. Something in them has been invited to rise. And whether they take that invitation or run from it is not your concern. You are not here to drag anyone into awakening. You are here to embody it. And that embodiment, that fierce, silent, powerful alignment is the most sacred offering you could ever give this world. So stop asking if you're too much. Stop wondering if you should soften your truth to make it easier to swallow. The people who are starving for what you carry will not ask you to dilute it. They will crave it. They will respect it. They will rise to meet it. And the ones who don't, let them fall away. Not as a loss, but as a clearing. Your energy is sacred real estate. It is not meant to host confusion. It is not meant to entertain projections. It is meant to be protected, honored, revered. So stand tall in your stillness. Speak only when your words are soaked in soul. Move only when your spirit calls. You don't need to fight for space. You are space. You don't need to rush to prove. You are the proof. You don't need to grasp for love. You are love expressed in truth. And yes, truth is disruptive. Truth is confronting. Truth breaks things before it heals them. But you didn't come here to be liked. You came here to be medicine. You came here to be memory. You came here to be movement. And every time you enter a room, something ancient inside others either wakes up or runs away. That is not your burden. That is your power. And power, when held with grace, becomes liberation. The world is not looking for another echo. It's looking for a voice. Not another mask, but a mirror. Not another distraction, but a compass. You are all of those things and more. You are what happens when a soul chooses truth over comfort, depth over performance, integrity over approval. And because of that, you will not always be invited, but you will always be remembered. Because no one forgets the one who made them feel something real. No one forgets the one who reminded them of who they are. No one forgets the one who disrupted the illusion just by standing in the light of their own being. You don't need to do anything extraordinary. Just don't hide. Just don't edit. Just don't apologize for the frequency you carry. Because when you were born, the world didn't need more of the same. It needed the exact essence you were coded to bring. And every time you betray that essence to fit in, the world goes a little dimmer. But every time you embody it, no matter the cost, the world remembers its own soul. So stand in that, radiate from that, live from that. Because your aura is not just powerful, it's prophetic. It doesn't whisper who you are, it declares it, and that declaration sends ripples through the fabric of everything. You are not just disturbing others, you are disturbing what needs to be disturbed, and that, beloved, is your purpose. Let it unfold, let it rise, let it be. And now that you know, you can no longer pretend you don't. You can't unknow your power, you can't unfeel your presence, you can't go back to shrinking, bending, softening yourself just to ease the discomfort of others. Because the truth is, your discomfort, when dimming your light, is far more destructive to your soul than their discomfort in witnessing it. You are not meant to be small. You are not made to be quiet when your spirit is screaming to be felt. Every room you enter is a stage for alignment, not performance, and your role is not to entertain or impress. Your role is to be the living embodiment of what happens when someone chooses to meet their shadow, shake hands with their pain, and walk back into the world whole. That kind of energy cannot be faked. It cannot be bought. It cannot be taught in books or mimicked by imitation. It is forged in silence, in solitude, in suffering, in those dark nights of the soul where you wondered if you'd make it through, but you did. And now, your energy carries the residue of every lesson burned into your bones. That is why people pause when you speak. That is why their voices soften when you look at them. That is why they fumble, grow nervous, or strangely silent around you. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your energy is doing what it always does, exposing what is fragile, waking what is asleep, and summoning the truth buried deep beneath the masks they've forgotten they were wearing. You are not a momentary disruption. You are a lifelong activation, the kind of soul people meet once and remember forever. Not for your words, but for how you made them feel safe or shattered, seen or shaken alive or exposed. That is the impact of your aura. And you have no idea how many people have been changed just by standing near you. You may never hear their confession, you may never see their transformation, but somewhere deep in the quiet of their spirit, your frequency planted a seed, a reminder, a crack in the illusion. And that is enough. You are not here to finish their journey. You are here to remind them that the journey exists. You are not here to save anyone. You are here to embody what it looks like to save yourself, because your very being gives others permission to do the same. This is why your aura disturbs, not because it is flawed, but because it is flawless in its refusal to be anything less than true. It carries no apology. It carries no performance. It simply is. And in a world addicted to fabrication, your isness becomes revolution. You don't need to control it. You don't need to explain it. You just need to be it. Every time you hold eye contact a little longer than expected. Every time you stay silent when others are speaking noise. Every time you choose not to react, not to defend, not to shrink. You are speaking the language of power. Not dominance, but presence. Not superiority, but sovereignty. You are becoming what Jung meant when he said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." You are awake, and when you are awake, you automatically disrupt those who are still dreaming. It is not cruelty. It is nature. It is the electricity that arcs between the soul and the world when something real enters the room. You are that something, that someone. You always have been, and the world has always known. The only question that remains is, will you know it too? Will you finally see that your discomfort was never because you were wrong, but because you were right in spaces that had forgotten what truth even felt like? Will you stop apologizing for the way people react to you and start honoring the rare gift of your energetic presence? Will you stop mourning the spaces that couldn't hold you and start celebrating the fact that your spirit outgrew the smallness they mistook for safety? This is your invitation not to become more, but to finally stop being less. To stop shaving off edges, shrinking into corners, dulling your light just so others won't feel the burn of their own shadows. You are not born to be digestible. You are born to be unforgettable. You are not created to be tolerated. You are created to be revered. Not by ego, not by force, but by the sheer gravity of a soul that has returned to itself. This is the path of the awakened, of the integrated, of the ones who have made peace with both their fire and their silence. You are not like the others, and you never were. That is your burden, yes. But more than that, it is your blessing, so own it. Let your aura speak before your mouth does. Let your energy go before you enter a room. Let your truth crack the illusions wide open. You are not here to be accepted. You're here to be known. Let them misunderstand. Let them mislabel. Let them distance themselves. Their departure is just the universe clearing space for those who can see. You really see you and still choose to stay because they are ready. And so are you. No more shrinking, no more softening, no more wondering if your presence is too much. It's not too much. It's just too real. And in a world that runs from the real, your existence will always be the bravest thing in the room. Walk in it, be in it, radiate from it, because your aura is not just powerful, it is transformational. And the time to live like you know that is now. You have spent so long wondering why you don't quite fit, why the room feels heavier when you enter, why people hesitate before speaking, why conversations grow shallow when your depth is near. But what you never realized is that you were never meant to fit, you were meant to stretch the space, meant to expand it, meant to fill it with a level of energy most people only feel in rare quiet moments when they're completely alone. You walk in and suddenly mirrors form, not glass ones, but energetic ones. Your being reflects back truths that others have spent their entire lives running from, and it's not because you try to, it's because you've stopped running from your own. You've faced the shadows, named the fear, touched the pain, and come out the other side with a clarity that can't be ignored. That clarity hums in your aura. That clarity pulses in your presence. It makes people question themselves, makes them reflect, makes them nervous, intrigued, confused, or sometimes even angry. But it always makes them feel. And that's what you do. You make people feel things they haven't felt in years, truths they've buried, emotions they've numbed. Not because you're a therapist, not because you're a healer by title, but because your energy does what truth always does. It pierces, it illuminates, it frees. And the people who are starving for realness will breathe again in your presence, while those addicted to their own illusions will cough on the smoke of your authenticity. And it's not your job to water yourself down for them. It's not your responsibility to make your presence more palatable to those who haven't tasted their own soul in years. You're not responsible for their wounds. You're only responsible for not becoming one of them. You are not here to make the fake feel safe. You're here to make the asleep feel the tremble of waking up. That's why your aura is disruptive. Not violent, but undeniable. It whispers in rooms where people shout. It echoes in hearts where silence has lived too long. It calls people back to themselves when they'd rather stay hidden. And that calling isn't always welcomed. Some will run, some will ridicule, some will try to diminish you, but that is always the sign of truth. Jung taught us that when the shadow is activated, it resists, it lashes out, it projects. And if you've become the trigger for someone's projection, it means your energy is working. It means your light has reached the place they tried to bury. So don't take their resistance personally. Take it as confirmation. Confirmation that your alignment is intact, that your energy is awake, that your presence is doing exactly what it was born to do: awaken, activate, and amplify. Your aura doesn't just precede you, it announces you. It warns illusions that they will not survive your gaze. It tells the inauthentic that performance won't work here. It whispers to the tired and the truthful, you are safe now. And that kind of energy doesn't need introductions. It doesn't need status or applause. It doesn't beg to be seen. It is seen by those who are ready to see, and invisible to those who are not. That's not rejection. That's resonance. Trust it. You don't need the whole world to understand you. You just need to understand yourself enough that you stop needing their understanding to stand firm. And once you do, everything changes. You stop entering rooms and adjusting your energy to fit in. You start allowing your energy to be the filter. And the ones meant for you, they don't just see you, they recognize you. There's no struggle, no shrinking, no noise. Just a quiet knowing. A shared vibration. An instant, wordless bond that says, you, too, those are your people. The ones who don't flinch at your fire. The ones who don't ask you to turn down your truth. The ones who welcome your intensity because they've been waiting for someone who doesn't fear their own. And for the rest, let them feel what they need to feel. Let them call you intense. Let them call you strange, unapproachable, too much. That is not your name. That is a label born from their own unprocessed reflection. The truth is, your aura makes people feel something they're not used to. It penetrates the mask. It bypasses the ego. It speaks directly to the soul. And when you do that without trying, you shift the entire field. You bring awareness into places where unconsciousness reigned. And the unconscious doesn't go quietly. It resists. It twists. It pushes back. But the ones who are meant to rise will remember you as the one who stirred their soul. You are never meant to blend in. You are meant to burn. Not recklessly, but with precision. You are meant to disturb, not for destruction, but for resurrection. And the discomfort people feel around you is not proof that you're doing something wrong. It's evidence that you're doing something real. The most powerful people on this earth are not the loudest. They are the clearest, the most rooted, the most integrated. And you are becoming one of them. Your aura is not ordinary. It's not accidental. It's a force, a message, a frequency. And the world doesn't need you to hide it. It needs you to own it. So stop walking into rooms wondering if you're too much. Start asking if the room is too small. Stop apologizing for the way your energy makes others feel. Start honoring the way your energy tells the truth. You're not for everyone. You were never supposed to be. You are here for the ones ready to awaken, for the ones ready to feel, for the ones who've been waiting to finally see someone stand in full alignment so they can remember how to return to their own. That is your medicine. That is your magic. That is your mission. Let it pour from you like sunlight. Let it radiate in your silence. Let it echo in your being. Your aura is not just powerful, it is sacred. It is disruptive in the way the wind disrupts still water, not to harm, but to stir, to wake, to move. Let it be the movement, be the mirror, be the mystery they can't explain but can't forget. You have no idea how powerful your aura is, but now you do. So walk like it, speak like it, love like it, exist like it, and never ever dim it again.
There are seasons in life when you feel as though you are trapped inside someone else's dream. Their voice fills the room, their needs eclipse the sky. Their hunger for validation devours the oxygen around you until your own breath feels stolen. You tried to love you, tried to help you, tried to endure. Yet somewhere along the way, you became the reflection in their mirror, not your own person, but an image sculpted to fit the fragile, desperate empire of the narcissist. And in that slow erosion, your soul whispered for freedom, but you silenced it, afraid of what might break if you finally spoke. The truth is, you were not meant to be consumed. You were not born to orbit another's wounded sun. Somewhere within you, beneath the layers of compliance and fear, a deeper current moves. Jung called this the self, the wholeness that exists beyond the masks we wear, beyond the persona that bends and smiles and nods to survive. The narcissist demanded your persona, demanded that you play the role they needed to see. But inside, the self has never agreed to this captivity. It waits with quiet intensity for the moment you recognize that the life you have lived in their shadow is not the life your soul has chosen. There is pain in acknowledging this, because part of you wanted to believe you could heal them, that your devotion could fill the emptiness that raged within them, that if you gave enough, surrendered enough, shrank yourself enough, then one day they would look at you with gratitude and love that felt real. But that hope was a projection, your unconscious casting light onto a figure who could not hold it. In truth, you were not seeing them clearly. You were seeing the unmet longings of your own heart, projected outward, painting them with colors they never possessed. The narcissist did not betray who they were. You betrayed yourself by refusing to see the truth of their limits. And yet, even this is not cause for despair. For Jung reminds us that what we repress, what we deny, what we project, all of it belongs to the deeper process of individuation, the journey toward becoming whole. Every shadow you ignored in them, every wound you overlooked in yourself now stands before you, demanding recognition. To break free is not only to step away from their control. It is to step into the cavern of your own unclaimed power. It is to gather the fragments of your identity that were scattered across years of self-betrayal, and to begin the slow, radical work of saying, "This is who I am, and I will no longer abandon myself." But before freedom comes, there is grief. Because leaving the world of the narcissist is not merely walking away from a person, it is walking away from the illusion that you could be the savior. It is mourning the dream that if you loved perfectly, you would finally be seen. That grief cuts deep because it touches the child within you who once needed unconditional recognition and never received it. And so you found yourself drawn again and again to those who could not provide it, as though your unconscious sought to rewrite the story. You suffered not because you were weak, but because your soul was trying to heal an ancient wound by reenacting it. Now you are being asked to wake from that cycle, to see that the shadow you chased in them was also your own. The disowned hunger for love, the fear of abandonment, the terror of unworthiness. And here lies the paradox. Only when you stop demanding it from the narcissist, only when you cease trying to extract from them what they cannot give, can you finally begin to offer it to yourself. Freedom does not come from defeating them, nor from proving them wrong, nor from making them repent. Freedom comes from no longer needing them to be anything at all. As you breathe into this truth, you may notice the body itself trembles. The nervous system has been shaped by years of vigilance, by walking on eggshells, by anticipating the storm before it struck. Breaking free requires not only a shift of mind, but a relearning of safety in your own skin. You may feel restless, uncertain, even guilty, as though you are betraying them by claiming your autonomy. That guilt is the residue of the persona trained to serve others at the expense of the self. Let the guilt come and let it pass. It is only a ghost of the old contract. You do not owe your life to their wounds. And so you begin to see the deeper pattern. The narcissist was not the prison, only the mirror. The true captivity was within the part of you that agreed to vanish so they could shine. But what if vanishing is no longer an option? What if you allowed yourself to exist, not as an accessory to another's hunger, but as a living soul with dignity, depth, and destiny? This question is dangerous because once asked, It cannot be ignored. It begins to unravel the entire architecture of self-sacrifice that kept you bound. And that unraveling, though terrifying, is the first breath of liberation. You may wonder, will they ever change? Will they ever recognize what they have done? Perhaps. But their transformation is not your responsibility, and your freedom cannot depend on their awakening. As Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The narcissist resists this work, for to face their unconscious would mean confronting the abyss within. You cannot walk that path for them. But you can walk it for yourself. You can begin to gather the projections you cast onto them, withdraw them back into your own awareness, and see that the love you longed for was always the love you must give to yourself. Breaking free, then, is not an act of rebellion against them. It is an act of reconciliation with yourself. It is remembering that your worth was never negotiable, never dependent on their validation, never diminished by their inability to see you. It is realizing that to live in their world was to live in exile from your own soul, and that the time for exile has ended. The path before you may feel uncertain, but it leads toward a horizon where you no longer confuse self-erasure with love. And that horizon, though still distant, is already calling your name. There comes a point when silence becomes unbearable. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of invisibility, the silence of sitting across from someone whose eyes never truly meet yours because they are gazing instead into their own reflection. You spoke, but your words dissolved into the void. You loved, but your love became currency to be spent, not a presence to be cherished. And you stayed, not because you were blind, but because some part of you believed that if you endured long enough, your sacrifice would be redeemed. Yet what you gave was never seen as a gift, only as an entitlement. And now the silence presses like a weight upon your chest, demanding that you finally hear what you have tried to avoid, that your soul can no longer survive in a place where it is not allowed to exist. The truth is, the narcissist did not steal your freedom. You handed it over piece by piece in the hope that they would return it wrapped in love. That was your unconscious bargain. And now, with trembling clarity, you see that they cannot return what they never knew how to hold. This realization burns because it requires you to confront not only their shadow, but your own. For the shadow is never only outside. It lives within, in the parts of you that colluded with the lie and the longing that convinced you to remain where love was absent. The shadow whispers, "If I am needed, then I will not be abandoned. If I serve, then I will not be rejected. If I disappear, then perhaps I will finally be safe." To face this voice is excruciating, yet to face it is the only way you begin to reclaim yourself. Jung spoke of the shadow as all that we repress, deny, or refuse to acknowledge. In the presence of the narcissist, your shadow has been forced into the open. You saw your own fear of unworthiness mirrored in their demands. You saw your own hunger for recognition reflected in the emptiness of their gaze. Every wound in you resonated with every wound in them, binding you in a dance that felt both inevitable and unbearable. But here lies the paradox. What feels like a curse is also an initiation. Because when the shadow is revealed, you are offered the chance to integrate it, to no longer live as a divided being torn between who you are and who you pretend to be. You may feel rage rising. Now rage at them for using you. Rage at yourself for allowing it. Let the rage come. It is not destruction, it is energy. It is the fire of the self, demanding to be restored to its rightful place at the center of your life. For too long, the persona, the mask you wore to keep the peace, to please, to survive, has ruled over you. But the mask is cracking, and through its fracture the self breathes again. This is not the gentle breath of comfort. It is the fierce breath of rebirth, the thunder of a soul refusing to remain in bondage. You do not need to apologize for this awakening. You do not need to explain your desire for freedom. You need only to allow it to grow. And yet there is grief alongside the rage. Because breaking free means relinquishing the fantasy, the dream that they would one day meet you in love, that your devotion would heal their emptiness, that you would finally be chosen. This fantasy has been both your prison and your hope. To release it feels like a death. And in a way, it is the death of an illusion that kept you bound. But death in Jung's language is never the end. It is transformation. Something must die so that something greater may live. And what now begins to live is the possibility of loving without vanishing, of existing without apology, of standing in your own soul without begging for permission. Do not mistake freedom for isolation. To free yourself does not mean to walk the earth alone, stripped of all connection. True freedom is the ability to enter relationships without chains, without masks, without the need to lose yourself in order to be loved. It means you can look into another's eyes and remain whole, not dissolve. It means you can give without bleeding, receive without shame, and walk away when love becomes exploitation. Freedom is not the absence of others. It is the presence of yourself within the space of others. And once you taste it, you will never again confuse captivity with love. The path is not easy. At times you will doubt yourself. The old voices will return. You are selfish, you are cruel, you are ungrateful. They will echo in your mind, sometimes in the narcissist's voice, sometimes in your own. But you must remember those voices belong to the persona, the mask that was trained to serve others at the expense of your soul. The self speaks differently. It whispers, "You have a right to exist. You have a right to breathe. You have a right to be seen not as an object, but as a soul." When you hear this voice, do not dismiss it. It is the oldest, truest part of you calling you home. Dreams, too, may begin to shift. Jung saw dreams as messages from the unconscious, symbols carrying the weight of what the waking mind cannot yet grasp. You may dream of doors, of storms, of prisons, of open fields. These are not random images. They are your psyche's way of guiding you through the passage from captivity to freedom. Pay attention. The unconscious knows what the conscious self resists. It shows you the future you cannot yet imagine, the liberation you are afraid to claim. Each dream is an invitation to listen more deeply, to honor what stirs beneath the surface. In this unfolding, you may discover something startling: compassion. Not the naive compassion that keeps you bound, but a mature compassion that sees the narcissist for what they are, a soul drowning in their own unconscious wounds. You do not excuse their harm, nor do you minimize it. But you see that their inability to love was never about your unworthiness. It was about their exile from their own self. This recognition does not mean you return to them. It means you no longer carry their darkness as your own. You lay it down gently but firmly, and you walk forward lighter, clearer, more whole. And so as the silence shifts, as the persona falls, as the self rises, you begin to glimpse what it means to live free. Not the freedom of escape, but the freedom of presence. To look at yourself in the mirror and not see a shadow of someone else's desire, but the face of your own soul. To breathe and feel the air belongs to you. To walk into the world not as a servant of another's hunger, but as a being whose existence itself is sacred. This is the freedom the narcissist could never give you, because it was never theirs to grant. It was always yours to claim. There are moments when the weight of leaving feels heavier than the weight of staying. You feel the pull of the familiar, even if the familiar has wounded you. The narcissist's world is a labyrinth you know by heart, the shifting walls of blame, the sudden outbursts, the calculated silences, the crumbs of affection that kept you tethered. Part of you fears that outside their labyrinth there is only emptiness, only an echo of your own loneliness. But that fear is itself the residue of their spell. They made you believe that without them you were nothing, that your value existed only in relation to their need. And now, standing at the threshold of your freedom, you must face the terror that perhaps they were right. This is the first test, to stand in the unknown and trust that your soul is not hollow. Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But to step into this privilege, you must first abandon the counterfeit identity that the narcissist imposed upon you. They painted you as selfish when you tried to set boundaries. They painted you as ungrateful when you asked for reciprocity. They painted you as weak when you broke beneath the weight of their demands. And you wore these portraits as though they were your skin until you could no longer remember what your true face looked like. Now the task is to peel away these false images one by one and allow the original self to emerge. This is not an easy task. The skin of the false self clings tightly. But with each tear, with each refusal to believe their narrative, you begin to breathe more deeply. As you step further from their shadow, the landscape of your inner world begins to shift. What once felt like emptiness begins to reveal itself as space. Space for your own voice to echo, for your own desires to rise, for your own dreams to unfold. The narcissist's voice, once the dominant sound in your psyche, begins to fade. In its place, a quieter but steadier rhythm emerges, the rhythm of your own heartbeat. For so long you synchronized yourself to their chaos, adjusting your steps to their unpredictable dance. But now you begin to walk to your own tempo. And in that rhythm, you rediscover dignity. This dignity does not announce itself with grandeur. It does not need to shout. It whispers in the small choices when you say no without apology, when you rest without guilt, when you express your truth without fear of retribution. Each act of self-respect is a stone laid on the path toward individuation. For individuation is not a grand event, but a series of moments in which you choose authenticity over illusion, wholeness over fragmentation, selfhood over shadow. And as you walk this path, you realize that freedom is not a destination. It is a practice, a daily turning toward the self, a daily refusal to abandon yourself. But liberation carries responsibility. To be free means to no longer hide behind the excuse of the narcissist's control. It means you must now face the parts of yourself that colluded with your captivity. The part that believed love must be earned through suffering. The part that equated sacrifice with virtue. The part that feared its own power and so found safety in submission. These parts are not your enemies. They are children of your past, born in moments when survival required surrender. You do not banish them. You sit with them. You hold them. You tell them that the danger has passed. In this way you become both parent and healer to your own wounded soul. Dreams may continue to guide you in this phase. Perhaps you dream of water rising and overflowing. Water is the symbol of the unconscious of life itself. It tells you that what was once dammed is beginning to flow again. You may dream of animals, a lion, a bird, a snake, each carrying instinctual wisdom, each representing a piece of your vitality returning. You may dream of a stranger who turns out to be you, a figure embodying the self, beckoning you forward. These are not just dreams, they are guideposts, messages from the depths reminding you that you are not alone in this journey. The unconscious walks with you, even when your conscious mind falters. And as you integrate these symbols, you begin to sense a rebirth. Not the superficial rebirth of starting over with a new mask, but the profound rebirth of meeting yourself for the first time. You begin to see beauty where before there was only numbness. You begin to feel joy not as a fleeting moment stolen between storms, but as a steady warmth that arises when you honor your own truth. You begin to trust your intuition, that subtle, often dismissed voice that tells you when something is real and when something is deception. This trust is the soil in which your future will grow. It is here in this fragile but fertile state that you may feel temptation to return, to answer their call, to re-enter their orbit, to test whether this time might be different. This is natural. Every liberation carries the temptation of relapse, because the familiar, even when harmful, feels safer than the unknown. But if you return, you will discover that nothing has changed. Their labyrinth remains the same. The only difference is that now you know its walls, and once knowledge has entered, ignorance can never return. You cannot unknow your own worth. You cannot unsee the truth of their shadow. You cannot unfeel the taste of freedom. And so, even if you stumble, Even if you wander back, the seed of liberation remains within you, pushing you once again toward the light. In time, the narcissist will no longer occupy the center of your inner stage. They will become a character in your story, but not the author of it. The pain will not vanish, but it will lose its power to define you. The shadow will not disappear, but it will become integrated, woven into the fabric of your wholeness. You will no longer need to project salvation onto others because you will have discovered it within. You will no longer fear abandonment because you will no longer abandon yourself. This is the quiet revolution of individuation, not the escape from suffering, but the transformation of suffering into strength, into wisdom, into soul. And so you arrive at the threshold of a new chapter. The chains are broken, though their echoes may still rattle. The path is open, though it requires courage to walk. The self is awakening, though it demands patience to grow. You are not finished, but you are free enough to begin. And that beginning is everything. For now, when you stand before the mirror, you do not see the mask the narcissist demanded. You see the eyes of a soul that has endured, that has suffered, that has awakened. And in those eyes, for the first time, you recognize yourself. The air feels different when you no longer breathe for someone else. At first, it is almost disorienting, like stepping out of a darkened theater into the blazing sun. Your eyes squint, your body resists, because the brightness feels too much. For so long, your world was dimmed, colored by another's needs, distorted by their projections. And now, as the light of your own life pours in, you find yourself unprepared for its intensity. Yet beneath that discomfort, something undeniable stirs the recognition that this light has always belonged to you. The narcissist's grip thrived on your doubt. They needed you to question your perception, to mistrust your own feelings, to believe that without their validation, you were adrift. But now you begin to see how that doubt was not the truth of who you are, it was the residue of their shadow pressed upon you. In Jungian language, this is projection. They projected their emptiness, their insecurity, their hidden shame onto you, and you carried it as though it were your own. You lived under the weight of burdens that were never yours to bear. And the moment you recognize this, something shifts inside you. The projection dissolves, and in its place, clarity emerges. I was never as broken as they made me believe. But this clarity does not arrive all at once. It comes in waves. One moment you feel strong and liberated. The next, the old voices return, whispering that you are selfish for leaving, cruel for reclaiming your life, unworthy of love unless you prove yourself through sacrifice. These whispers are echoes of the persona, the mask you wore for survival. And though the mask is no longer your home, its imprint lingers. Jung understood this tension, the back and forth between the old self and the emerging self. He knew that individuation is not a single leap, but a spiral, a continual circling closer to wholeness. And so when the whispers return, do not see them as failure. See them as invitations to choose differently this time, to refuse the lie once more, to reaffirm your right to exist. The journey deeper into freedom requires something that feels counterintuitive: compassion for yourself. Not the surface-level kindness of indulging every comfort, but the deeper compassion of listening to what your soul truly needs. For years you silenced your needs, convincing yourself they were trivial or burdensome. Now each need that rises within you is an opportunity to heal. The need for rest is not laziness. It is your body reclaiming its rhythm. The need for solitude is not isolation. It is your psyche restoring its boundaries. The need for expression, whether through words, art, or tears, is not indulgence. It is the unconscious releasing what it has carried too long. To meet these needs with gentleness is to begin repairing the bond with yourself. As this repair unfolds, you may notice that relationships themselves take on a new quality. Where once you were drawn magnetically to those who demanded your erasure, now you begin to sense the possibility of connection without annihilation. This is where Jung's concept of the anima and animus becomes alive. The anima, the inner feminine in the man, and the animus, the inner masculine in the woman, are archetypes that represent the bridge between the conscious self and the unconscious. When they are distorted, they pull us toward relationships that mirror our wounds. When they are integrated, they guide us toward relationships that nurture wholeness. Your time with the narcissist was a distortion of this archetype, the longing for union twisted into captivity. But as you integrate, you will find that union no longer means surrendering your soul, but meeting another from a place of equal depth. This does not mean you will never encounter pain again. Life will still wound you because to be human is to suffer. But suffering will no longer feel like exile from yourself. It will feel like a passage through which you deepen. Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." The narcissist was part of that painful initiation. They were the crucible in which your illusions burned away, forcing you to confront the shadow, to reclaim your projections, to awaken the self. And now, though the scars remain, they carry meaning. Each scar is not a mark of defeat, but of transformation, proof that you have walked through fire and emerged not destroyed, but remade. Dreams may continue to speak, but now their tone softens. You may dream of doors opening instead of closing, of paths unfolding instead of labyrinths constricting. You may see yourself flying or standing on a mountain or gazing into clear water. These are not just images. They are reflections of the psyche's rebirth, symbols of the self coming into alignment. Pay attention to them, for they are guideposts reminding you that freedom is not only external but internal. It is the way your soul imagines itself now that it is no longer bound. There is one more truth you must face. Breaking free from the narcissist is not the end of your story, but the beginning of your responsibility to live differently. The danger is always to repeat, to find another who wears the same mask, to unconsciously recreate the same dynamics, to fall again into the same shadow. But awareness is your protection. Each time you recognize the pattern, each time you feel the old pull and choose, otherwise you strengthen your wholeness. Freedom is not given once. It is claimed again and again in each choice you make to honor yourself. And as you continue to walk, you begin to see how this personal liberation ripples outward. By refusing to remain bound, you become a mirror for others who are still captive. Your presence becomes a quiet testimony. It is possible to leave. It is possible to heal. It is possible to live whole. You do not need to preach this nor force it. Simply by existing as yourself, you offer permission for others to begin their own journeys. This is the collective power of individuation, that when one soul awakens, it awakens the possibility in many. Now, when you look back at the labyrinth you once inhabited, it no longer defines you. It is a memory, a place you passed through, but not your home. Your home is within in the self that you now carry with reverence. And though life will test you, though shadows will return, though wounds will ache, you will never again confuse bondage with love. You have tasted freedom, and once tasted it cannot be forgotten. You are no longer the reflection in another's mirror. You are the mirror itself, whole, unbroken, luminous. There is a silence that no longer feels like emptiness, but like presence. The silence of a soul no longer screaming to be recognized, but resting in the dignity of its own being. This silence is where freedom matures, not in grand declarations, but in the steady rhythm of living, as though your life belongs to you. And it does. For the first time, it does. The narcissist fades not because you have forgotten them, but because they are no longer the axis of your world. Their drama no longer dictates your days. Their approval no longer defines your worth. They exist now as a chapter you have read, one that shaped you, wounded you, and in some paradoxical way initiated you. Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The darkness you endured with them was not meaningless. It forced you to turn inward, to confront your shadow, to withdraw your projections, to wrestle with your own illusions. And in that confrontation, something awakened a deeper self, no longer willing to live half asleep. This awakening is not a moment but a way of being. You notice it in how you inhabit your body differently. No longer braced for the storm, no longer walking on eggshells. Your breath begins to deepen. Your shoulders begin to drop. Your nervous system begins to believe in safety again. You notice it in your voice, how it steadies when you speak your truth, how it refuses to tremble under the weight of someone else's disapproval. You notice it in your choices, how you no longer rush to sacrifice yourself at the first sign of conflict, how you pause, listen, and ask what your own soul desires. These small shifts are not small at all, they are revolutions. They are the daily acts by which captivity unravels. At times you may feel the pull of the old patterns. The shadow does not vanish. It circles, it tempts, it lingers at the edge of awareness. You may find yourself drawn again to the familiar magnetism of those who demand too much, who reflect your wounds back to you. But the difference now is that you see it. You feel the old pull and recognize it as a shadow longing to repeat itself. This recognition is power. For once the unconscious becomes conscious, it loses its grip. You may stumble, yes, but each stumble becomes an act of learning rather than a return to bondage. This is what freedom looks like, not perfection, but awareness that grows stronger with every step. As individuation deepens, you encounter the archetypes within you more clearly. The persona, once the mask you could not remove, now becomes a tool you use consciously. You can wear it when the world demands it, but you no longer confuse it with who you are. The shadow once projected outward now sits beside you as a companion, teaching you humility, honesty, and depth. The anima or animus, once distorted into toxic relationships, now begins to guide you toward inner balance, helping you recognize and integrate the qualities you once sought in others, and the self. The great center emerges not as an abstract idea, but as the living core of your being, the quiet knowing that you are whole. Wholeness does not mean perfection. It means you no longer exile parts of yourself to please others. It means you embrace the contradictions within you, strength and vulnerability, rage and tenderness, fear and courage. The narcissist demanded that you fragment yourself, keeping only the pieces that served their needs. But freedom is refusing to be fragmented. Freedom is standing in the fullness of your humanity, even when it feels messy, even when it feels raw. This is what it means to live from the self, not as an image, but as a living soul. And with this wholeness comes a new relationship to suffering. Where once suffering felt like punishment, now it feels like initiation. You begin to see that pain itself can be a teacher pointing you toward the places within you that still need healing. The narcissist was one such teacher, though they never intended to be. They forced you into the confrontation you avoided, and in doing so they unwittingly became part of your transformation. This does not excuse their harm, nor does it justify it. But it does transmute it, turning what was once only wound into a source of wisdom. You carry scars, yes, but you also carry the strength those scars signify. The dreams that come now may carry images of integration. Perhaps you dream of reunions of lost parts of yourself, returning of landscapes that once felt threatening, now blooming with life. You may dream of children, symbols of new beginnings, new possibilities, new innocence. You may dream of circles, mandalas, wheels, wholeness itself. Jung believed that such dreams arise when the self is nearing integration, when the psyche has endured the chaos and is ready to cohere. These dreams are not fantasies. They are mirrors of your soul's progress, signs that the unconscious affirms the path you walk. And as you live from this place, your life begins to ripple outward. Relationships no longer follow the old script. You begin to attract those who meet you as an equal, not as a servant. You begin to speak in ways that inspire others to listen to their own souls. Without trying, you become a presence of authenticity, and authenticity always calls authenticity out of others. This is the collective power of individuation. As one person awakens, others feel the permission to awaken as well. Your journey through captivity and freedom is no longer only your own. It becomes part of a larger movement toward consciousness. Now, standing in this moment, you can look back without flinching. You see the narcissist not as the destroyer of your life, but as the catalyst of your awakening. You see yourself not as a victim of their shadow, but as one who turned shadow into strength. You see your story not as a tale of suffering alone, but as a myth of descent and return of death and rebirth, of exile and homecoming. You have struggled in the lives of narcissists, but now you break free, not into emptiness, but into the fullness of your own being. And when you breathe into this truth, the silence deepens, but it no longer suffocates. It nourishes. It surrounds you like a vast sky, open, endless, waiting for the life you are now ready to live. You are no longer a reflection in someone else's mirror. You are the flame itself. You are the self alive, awake, whole.